Hello guys, welcome to our new movie recap channel. I've got a surprise for you waiting at the end of this video. Our movie begins on a foggy winter night. An old man is seen working late, crafting wooden fans shaped like birds, their wings designed to move with the air. At the same time, a young woman named Lillian is painting her front door and playing with her cat. When the cat messes up the paint, she is forced to put it outside temporarily. Suddenly, the old man, Blackway, appears at her apartment door. She is terrified of him and screams. The next morning, Lillian is found asleep in her car, waiting for Officer Wingate. When he arrives and taps on the window, she wakes up frightened, holding a knife. He identifies himself as Wingate, and she demands proof since he isn't in uniform. He explains he rarely wears it and tells her if she doesn't want to come with him, she can wait for another officer. Feeling she has no choice, she gets out and goes with him. Inside, she shows him her cat, which is very dear to her as it belonged to her deceased mother, the same cat the old man killed. When Wingate asks who the old man is, she says his name is Blackway, but doesn't know his full name. Wingate reveals it's Richard Blackway, known by everyone in the neighborhood, and is surprised she doesn't know him. She explains she didn't grow up here and only returned after her mother's death. Wingate recognizes her as the daughter of Betsy Rand, expresses his condolences, and says her mother was well-liked in the community. He asks how long Blackway has been harassing her. She responds that what he did was more than harassment. He is now a direct threat to her life. She explains he attacked her the previous week after her shift at Sullivan's Tavern, where she works as a part-time waitress and substitute teacher. Wingate asks why she didn't report the incident then. She says she thought it was a one-time encounter with a stranger she'd never see again, but afterwards she started seeing him everywhere. At the grocery store, the tavern, on the street, and at the gas station. Wingate suggests it's normal in a small town, but she insists he is actively watching her. He advises the best solution is for her to pack her things and return to where she used to live. Surprised, she asks if he isn't going to bring Blackway in for questioning. Wingate implies procedure works differently here. When she presses him on how it does work, he remains silent. Realizing the officer won't help her, she declares she will handle it herself and starts to leave. He stops her, suggesting she go to a place called Samel, just across from their district, and asks for a man named Scotty, who might be able to stop Blackway from bothering her. He adds she needs to speak to the area's manager, Zizer, who can give Scotty the order. Wingate offers to bury the cat for her, but she refuses, saying she will do it herself. Back at home, Lillian digs a small grave for her cat, haunted by the memory of Blackway standing at her door and her slamming it in his face. He took his revenge by killing her cat. She drives to Samel, specifically to a logging company staffed mostly by older men, except for one younger man named Nate. Their manager is Zizer, the man Wingate mentioned. Lillian enters and asks if a man named Scotty works there. Zizer confirms he does, but says he's currently away in White River City. When they ask why she needs him, she explains about Richard Blackway's harassment, her report to Officer Wingate, and that Wingate sent her here for help, whether to reason with Blackway, threaten him, or something else, as he killed her cat and has threatened her since she arrived. They suggest she simply leave town and find another neighborhood or return to where she came from, insisting it's the best solution. Though baffled by their response, she makes it clear she won't abandon her home, grows angry, curses at them, and storms out to her car, only to find it has been disabled. She is furious. Inside, Zizer jokes to his crew that anyone who helps her will get their full pay, plus their funeral expenses. They all laugh. Unexpectedly, one of the men, Lester, speaks up and says he will go with her. A stunned Zizer asks him to repeat himself. Lester confirms he will help her solve her problem. Zizer asks if he plans to face Blackway alone, and Lester says no, he'll take Nate with him. When Zizer asks Nate if he agrees, Nate says he doesn't mind. Despite Zizer knowing Blackway is dangerous and that confronting him is futile, he gives his permission. Lester and Nate go outside to Lillian, look at her car, and confirm the battery is dead. They tell her they'll take Nate's truck. Lillian is both surprised and relieved that someone has decided to stand with her. Before they leave, Nate asks Lester if Zizer was serious about the money. Lillian overhears and offers to pay them, but Lester refuses, saying they don't need her money. Back inside, Zizer and his crew talk about Wingate, calling him a coward for sending Lillian to them because he can't do his job. They ask Zizer why Lester is doing this. Zizer says Lester has a soft heart and sees Lillian like one of his own daughters in trouble, with no one to help. As for Nate, he agreed to go simply because he doesn't truly understand how dangerous Blackway is. On the way, they stop at Lester's house so Lillian can use the bathroom. She notices the wooden bird fans on nearby porches. Nate tells her Blackway makes them, and that his wife used to sell them until she ran off with the local dentist one day. Inside Lester's house, Lillian sees a conspicuously empty room that clearly belonged to a girl. Back in the truck, she asks Nate about it. He says it was his daughter's room. She committed suicide, but Lester never talks about it. She also notices Lester bringing a rifle. She tells him she doesn't want things to go that far. He replies that if she plans to deal with Blackway with just talk, they should take her to the nearest bus station so she can leave town. He explains Blackway is irrational, a criminal, and leaving is the only real solution. He tells her to speak now if she has a problem with his plan, forcing her to agree. Meanwhile, at the logging company, a man arrives and tells Zizzer that a woman was asking for Scotty and that Officer Wingate sent her to deal with a problem involving Blackway. Scotty himself says he has nothing to do with it. Zizzer suggests Wingate sent her because he thought Scotty might want to settle old scores with Blackway, especially since Blackway killed 3 of Scotty's men after Scotty sent them to work for him. Scotty claims they've made peace and there are no old scores. Privately, however, Scotty remembers a time Blackway nearly beat him to death and knows he only said they made peace out of fear. Lester's group goes to a man named Fitz's house to ask about Blackway's whereabouts. Fitz asks the same question everyone does. Why are you looking for Blackway? They explain about Lillian. Fitz says Blackway was just there but left, and that a major conflict started between them when Blackway forged the deed to a piece of land near the main mountain. Despite having done a lot of business, Fitz decided to report him to the police. One night, he and his wife Cynthia woke to find Blackway holding their daughter, Heidi, in a corner of the room. Before Fitz could turn on the light, Blackway threatened him, asking why he was going to the police. Terrified for his daughter, Fitz couldn't speak. Blackway told him they'd worked together a long time and made good money, but if Fitz did anything to upset him again, he'd come back and kill the girl. He then placed the child on the bed and left. Fitz confirms Blackway's threats are serious, which is why he never actually went to the police. Lillian mentions that his daughter Heidi is a student in her substitute classes. Moved by their story, Fitz decides to help and suggests Blackway might be at a logging area near Diamond Mountain, though if he's not there, he doesn't know where else he could be. They drive to the mountain, see the logging area, and Nate gets out to ask the workers about Blackway. They in turn ask why he's looking for him. Lester gets out and says they need him for something urgent. One worker reluctantly says he might be at a tavern in Marduk. Another worker yells at the first for speaking, reminding him Blackway warned them not to tell anyone his location. Lester thanks them and leaves. They arrive at the tavern in Marduk. Blackway's truck isn't there, but they go in to ask about him. Lester recognizes a man who clearly knows Blackway and asks for his location, explaining that Blackway is harassing Lillian. The man tells Lillian that if she thinks the old man and the kid can help her, she's wrong, and advises her to just leave town. He tells Nate that facing Blackway will land him in the hospital. Nate gets angry and attacks the man. A fight breaks out, and the bartender hands the man a knife to kill Nate. Lester intervenes, disarms the situation, and they manage to get back to their truck and drive away. They stop at a diner to eat. Lester excuses himself and goes to speak to the cook, Chris. Chris apologizes for missing the memorial service for Lester's daughter, Emmy, saying he was in a bad place and has been out of work up north for 3 months. Lester asks him about Blackway's whereabouts. Chris seems to know, but is reluctant to talk. Meanwhile, Lillian tends to Nate's face, which was cut in the fight. She tells him she once wanted to open a diner like this, but a foolish partner lost all the money. When Nate asks what she would have served, she says simple breakfast and coffee. Lester keeps pressing Chris until he finally says Blackway is most likely at his old hotel on Route 40, called the Highlight Hotel, and warns Lester to be careful if he goes there. When Lester returns and sees Lillian cleaning Nate's wound, he tells her to leave that to his girlfriend, Rowena. When Nate tries to say Rowena isn't his girlfriend, Lester teases him and tells them it's time to go. They drive to the Highlight Hotel, but don't see Blackway's distinctive large silver truck. They do see many armed young men and women around, making it clear this is a shady place suited to someone like Blackway. Lester gets out and tries to get close to a room to eavesdrop for information. Suddenly, he sees Blackway with an armed man. He hides. The armed man tells Blackway about an old man and a girl asking for him. By bad luck, Lester knocks over a bottle. The armed man goes to investigate with his gun drawn, but Lester hides behind a refrigerator and isn't seen. In this moment, Lester flashes back to the day of his daughter's funeral, when police stopped him on his way home, suspected him of drunk driving, but when they learned he was the father of the girl who committed suicide, they crudely suggested it was due to bad parenting. He was unable to respond and was taken in for testing. After Blackway and his man leave, Lester returns to the truck, gets Nate and Lillian, and they enter the room Blackway was in front of. They tell a bouncer they're from the Holy Spirit Church and are looking for Blackway because he won their lottery. At that moment, Lillian sees her high school friend, Trudy, tied to a bed in the room. She slips inside quickly to rescue her. Simultaneously, Blackway's accountant enters and realizes they are the ones asking about him. Nate draws his weapon, and Lester threatens them for information, but they refuse. Lester shoots the accountant in the leg, and Nate fires wildly around the room. Alcohol ignites, and the place starts to burn. They escape just before it explodes. Lester is furious that Lillian brought Trudy with them. He says if Blackway sees her again, he'll kill her, so they rush her to the nearest bus station so she can flee immediately. Watching Lillian say goodbye to her friend, Lester tells Nate that if Lillian is smart, she'll get on that bus and escape with Trudy. Nate says he's heard Portland, where Lillian used to live, is a nice city and doesn't understand why she left it to come here. When Lillian returns, she tells them Trudy said Blackway is in the Towns area at the old gold mine. Back at the logging company, Zizzer talks with his crew about Lester's feud with Blackway, recalling a time Lester hired 4 lumberjacks who then vanished without a trace, their food still on the table. Everyone knows Blackway was responsible. On the road, Nate says the Towns area is extremely dangerous, like a Bermuda Triangle of forests where it's easy to get lost. Lester states that when they find Blackway, they must kill him, as he now knows they're after him and would kill them first. When Lillian suggests there might be another way and that this is her problem, not theirs, Lester gets angry and says it's all of their problem now. They reach a certain point, get out of the truck, and walk toward their target. As they walk, Lillian tells Lester about the first time she saw Blackway, when he left her an excessively large tip and wanted to get to know her better. She refused, citing that her mother was waiting. The strange part was that when her shift ended, he was waiting by her car, tried to take her home, and when she refused, he assaulted her. She resisted and screamed until someone came out of the tavern, but when they saw it was Blackway, they didn't dare intervene. Lillian seized the moment, got in her car, and escaped. She tells Lester she thought he was just a drunk stranger she'd never see again. Lester tells her she's not at fault, that Blackway is trash, and he would have harassed her even if she'd never spoken to him. He says life is like that. Even if you try to avoid trouble, it finds you. They finally arrive at the location where Blackway is supposed to be. They see old equipment. Lester says he worked here years ago. The equipment belonged to a man named Jimmy Mala, who died long ago. The place hasn't changed in years. Nate finds the modified truck Blackway uses to get around in the woods. They enter an old trailer that serves as his base. Lester tells Nate to gather wood and start a fire to draw Blackway out, then says he will scout the perimeter to see if Blackway has set any traps in the woods. Lillian gets scared and asks him to stay with them or suggests they leave. He says it's too late. Blackway will only come from the road ahead, which is the only access, and they'll hear his truck from at least 2 miles away. He gives her his pistol to defend herself. Nate asks her why she refused to leave in the first place. She says she hates the idea of running away, especially when she's done nothing wrong, but now feels she's taken a huge risk. She is even afraid of the gun in her hand, so Nate begins to teach her how to use it, the correct stance, how to aim, and how to reload. He unloads it to avoid an accidental discharge and tells her not to hesitate if the time comes to use it. He then asks her about Portland. She describes how beautiful it is, especially in spring, and tells him he should visit someday. Suddenly, Blackway appears behind Lillian, puts a gun to her head, takes her pistol, and threatens to kill Nate if he moves. He mocks her, asking if she thought she and her foolish friends could handle him. He says he won't show mercy because they destroyed his tavern and shot his accountant. Meanwhile, Lester is in the trailer, aiming his rifle at Blackway. Nate grabs a burning log from the fire and throws it at Blackway. A brutal fight erupts. Blackway is immensely strong. Lillian tries to help, but Blackway hits her, knocking her to the ground. She looks for the pistol on the ground while Nate and Blackway fight. Blackway overpowers Nate, beating him until he loses consciousness. When Lillian finds the pistol, she discovers it's unloaded. As she frantically tries to pick up bullets from the ground, Blackway grabs an axe and is about to kill her. Lester, still in the trailer, is about to shoot Blackway when suddenly one of Blackway's men, Balkuka, shoots Lester. Lillian seizes the moment and runs, dashing into an old house. She starts loading the pistol but hears Blackway coming, panics, and hides in a room. Meanwhile, Balkuka enters the trailer to finish off Lester, but Nate regains consciousness and attacks him. They fight fiercely. Inside the house, Lillian, sensing Blackway is right outside the door, fires 2 shots through it and flees out another exit, but the shots miss as Blackway was positioned to the side. He breaks into the room, but she has already escaped out the back and hides behind a tree. Blackway finds her and starts to choke her, but she manages to break free. At the same time, Nate grabs another burning piece of wood and fights Balkuka. As Balkuka tries to block the blow, Nate shoves him onto an old piece of machinery and he hits his head and dies. Lillian is now in a direct confrontation with Blackway. Fortunately, Lester was wearing a bulletproof vest, having anticipated gunfire. He emerges from behind Blackway and shoots him dead. When Nate arrives and sees Blackway's body, he tells them he killed Balkuka. Lester says they need to drag the bodies and dump them in the forest. Lillian asks what will happen if Blackway's men find them. Lester replies that no one will come looking here, that the crows and wildlife will get to them before anyone does, and their bodies will be gone within a week. They drag the bodies into the woods and spend the night in the forest until morning, then drive back in the truck. On the way, they pass Caesar, who sees them alive and knows it means Blackway is dead. They return to Lester's house. There, Lillian asks Lester about Blackway's men possibly seeking revenge. Lester responds by asking, "Who's Blackway?" implying the matter is over and done with. He tells her he'll see her around sometime. She leaves and gets in the truck with Nate. She asks if he's going to see Rowena to get his wounds treated. He clarifies that she isn't his girlfriend, and that Lester only says that because once, when her car broke down, Nate helped her. There's also a distant family connection between Nate's mother and Rowena's stepfather, but in reality, they have no relationship. It's clear Lillian is pleased to hear this, and with that, this story comes to an end. Alright guys, as I promised, 5 random people will win prizes from our channel. All you have to do is like, comment, and subscribe. Don't miss your chance. Winners will be announced soon.